I wasn't able to catch the live, but after just catching the replay, it was just as I thought it would be. A short guy who thinks he's smarter than everyone else in the vicinity, including the chat, periodically contradicting himself throughout the interview, proving that he's actually probably one of the slowest in the vicinity. Here's something else that struck me as being weirdly counter-self in its presentation. How does a person feasibly try making someone else's actions look and sound bad when they literally followed behind those actions with even worse actions? Disgusting actions, as a matter of fact. I'm sure people are really having a hard time processing the fact that he actually tried to spin it to make it appear that West Indie Collections was the nasty one by saying she had sex with her ex raw and let him dump off in her, and his sperm threw off her pH balance. But he completely tried to avoid addressing the fact that, knowing that, he still went down on her. And then he attempted to minimize that action by stating that it was only 2 minutes. Holy shite, man! Are you bloody serious? You saying that Monique dealt with several guys before you, and you still chose to go raw with her? People referring to you as mucus may make you feel that it's childish. However, I feel that it's actually quite accurate. What with that white film of mucus discoloring your tongue? And all of that mouth movement. What's that about? There's either some very uncomfortable business going on in there, or it's numb. And according to the stories of many crackheads, that's what happens when...
How to tell if somebody is a coke addict. I'm a recovering cocaine addict. I was a cocaine addict. It was one of my drugs of choice. Cocaine gives you this huge ego boost. It gives you this, almost like the superpower feeling inside, that you're unstoppable, that you're cool. It really is weird what it does to your head. Knowing that I was gonna get high, knowing that it was going to numb everything for me. My give a shit level went to about a 0. No, actually probably less than that, probably about a -50. As soon as it went up my nose, you could literally feel the numbness hit as it went. As it would go up my nose, it would make my nose numb. I would feel it up into my sinuses. I would instantly get a drip, so I would start to feel the sinuses almost kind of build up, and I'd feel the liquid just starting to drip from my sinus cavities down into my throat. And it would be like this huge breath of fresh air, and it was like all of a sudden my Superman cape was on. And now all of a sudden my teeth are starting to go numb, my gums are starting to go numb. Next thing you know, my jaw is starting to clench up. And being ADHD, that's when also it was like this cape came over my head, and my focus went from all over the place to even more zoomed in. And if you do a line of coke, you get very, very dry mouth. So I would end up drinking a lot while I was doing coke. The desire for sex went up tremendously. I mean, when you do it, your mouth does, in a sense, go numb. Your mouth is very, very dry. Your nose is dripping nonstop. And you're not feeling, but in your head, you're like, oh my God, I am alive.
Who does this remind you of? Allegedly. I mean, I've seen almost every one of these symptoms in that guy. Allegedly. Now, of course, I'm not going to definitively say he's suffering from any of these things. But my eyes do not lie to me, like he tries to lie to me. Allegedly. Going down on someone after an ex has dumped off in them, possibly throwing off their pH balance, isn't protected sex just because you're wearing a condom, you fucking moron! Oh, for the love of Pete! He's in Atlanta! How is this guy even still alive? By the way, not being a certified qualified psychiatrist means You can't determine what could be considered traumatic to a child who started their sexual experiences early. And in a kind of funny way, as you stated, that within itself defines some sort of out of ordinary experience. And although I won't specifically put the label of you experienced trauma on it, based on your current actions and activity when dealing with sexual activities, your willingness to engage in unprotected sex with multiple unknowns, mostly homeless, some who are actually street workers and drug users, I don't think it's even necessary to ask the question. Trauma is involved because you are a trauma. You are the trauma. Marcus has this way of dealership talking or salesman conversing, where every time he speaks, he's attempting to sell you on his idea of how things are or how things should be, according to him. It's one of the main characteristics of ASPD, antisocial personality disorder, where a person not only has little empathy, they have a habit of rationalizing their actions. They have a consistent disregard for rules and social norms, and a nasty habit of repeatedly violating other people's rights, like repeatedly asking traumatizing questions that are literally outside of someone else's traumatic experience. You literally ask questions that add to traumatizing a person, and you never even see the deviancy in doing those things. However, you do know the difference between right and wrong, which is why you're not being called a psychopath. People, there is no cure for being a sociopath, only meds. So, imagine what it is to also have an oversized ego, coupled with narcissism, a Napoleon complex, and a huge tendency for deviant behavior. Now, if he's not taking meds, which he clearly seems not to be, you ain't winning no arguments with this guy, because in his mind, he's not doing anything wrong. And if he is, he's still right. If there's one certainty about Shorty, in his mind, he never loses, because narcissists never lose. They always win, even when they're losing. Example, having that much sex with that many people without always using protection, he's still able to deny that he may be a sex addict, but he can declare himself to have a high risk tolerance. A high risk tolerance? Which is again a sociopathic, self-serving answer that does not address the real issue here. And the real issue is he is an absolute danger to everyone he engages with in a sexual way. You simply claiming to have a high risk tolerance, that's your sociopathic narcissistic ego trying to separate you from the facts of you being a high risk danger. You spoke of having evidence to the contrary. I want you to specifically give your evidence to the contrary that certain specific wording, such as, did you have an orgasm? And did you find that you started to enjoy having sex with your violator after a certain amount of time? I want you to give your contrary evidence to how those specific questions contribute to the awareness of sexual abuse. I challenge you to that. You want to play checkers with your dodgy answers by saying that you have tons of emails and DMs of people telling you how it helps them to understand their family members or people that have been through similar situations, and how they have daughters and nieces and how they now know what to look for. Well, based on that and its association with the initial question and any of the follow-up questions that are directly related to sexual trauma, that would be correct, but that is not what's being asked here. What is being asked is what you keep dodging. What does asking if someone achieved an orgasm, or did you eventually start to enjoy it, or did you get horny or whatever watching your wife get boned by the same guy that just raped you? and then you laughing at it, how do any of those things help get the information out there? How does that provide clues on how traumas happen? None of those questions provide any information on how to prevent those traumas. Those questions are undeniably self-serving perv questions. People are not encouraging your dumb fuck ass to keep asking those questions. They're asking you to continue asking questions that could possibly help in the prevention of abuse and sexual traumas. I don't believe you're being pressured enough to answer the correct, specific questions. Questions that hit you right across your fucking jawline. Questions that don't allow you to come up with your sales pitch answers. Questions like, why do you ask women about orgasms in the midst of the sexual trauma questions you ask them? Why do you ask them if they eventually start enjoying sex with a person that molested them? Why would you ask an autistic man if he gets horny watching his wife get boned by the same guy that just raped him? Why would you laugh when asking that autistic man about being sexually abused by one of your former interviewees? Why don't you see yourself as a sexual danger to the women you have unprotected sex with, knowing that some of them were on drugs and prostituting themselves? Why don't you ever just simply deny having sex with Layla? You always spin it to you never asked her to pretend like she was a little girl. That's not the question that's being asked right now. We'll get to that one later. Did you or did you not have sex with her? A person who was obviously suffering from some form of mental challenge and at the time was only 19 years old. Did you have sex with her? And did you record it? Would you be willing to do a Steve Wilkos lie detector show where you would be asked specific questions that you won't dodge because they won't have anything to do with your possible court case? These are the type of questions that need to be asked of you. The fact that you dodge, twist, and avoid addressing specific questions of your direct deviant questions and wordings, such as enjoyment, orgasms, horny, show you to be a dodgy, avoiding, twisted deviant that doesn't like personal questions directed at him because of the deviancies he's trying to keep hidden. So your foolish narcissism convinces you that you are outside of approach to being asked certain questions because of your stupid alley-oop analogies. You are no better, nor are you any more important than the people you pressure into answering your extra deviant but irrelevant questions. Nobody needs an alley-oop from you. That's not helping their channels grow. All they need of you is for you to continue being an idiot. That's what's helping their channels grow. You're deviantly mixing important questions in with your deviant perverted questions, which gives your sociopathic mind a reason to defend your deviant questions. And you actually think these checkerboard moves of deceitful manipulations and quotes of the majority being representative of positivity, popularity, and high numbers, you actually think that's good enough to sway those that have the ability to think critically? No, it's not. Your high numbers and popularity aren't based on an approval. They're based on your popularity of being a nasty deviant that occasionally goes homeless woman hunting in unsafe, sexually irresponsible ways. A person that also happens to be a sociopathic narcissist with a Napoleon complex that everyone is interested in watching just to see you eventually run into that wall that you continue to pretend doesn't exist for you. Your delusions of grandeur are so consuming that you actually think that the popularity surrounding you is because of you. No, it's not you. It's your incredible ability to do stupid shite That is popular. Your rampant, unsafe sexual promiscuity. That is popular. Yes, all of your sexual deviant actions are quite nasty, but they also capture people's attention. It isn't you, it's your deviancy. It's your ridiculous capacity to be so fucking ignorant in so many areas and still manage to be pretty successful. That is what's generating your numbers, you idiot. And you have the nerve to say, I'm this and that, but you're here watching me. Well, of course we're watching you. Why wouldn't we? Ask yourself this, if you're smart enough to analyze it. How many people do you know that wouldn't stand and watch a train wreck, as long as it's from a pretty safe distance? The train is you! Off the tracks and into a deep ravine is where you're heading. Being on YouTube and able to watch your reckless behavior is a very safe distance from which to watch you crash. So of course we're watching. Hence the high numbers and popularity. It's simply your deviant disabilities that prevent you from recognizing that. And that's the long and short of it, dummy.